And now we wait. Advent is that time, of course, when we're waiting. We're being patient. We're preparing. And, when I think of the Advent season, when I think of this time of year, there are tons and tons of different memories I have. It's interesting. Today's readings are so powerful. They're so beautiful, especially that reading from Isaiah, the description of the promised place that God is making. The description just sounds so beautiful. There'll be no animosity. There'll be no division. Even animals that are typically enemies to one another will get along. They'll be led by a child. Doesn't it sound so beautiful? Don't you want that? It should be the desire of our hearts. It should be the desire that, of all things, this is what we want. But let's face it, somewhere along the line, we have to learn how to get there. We have to learn what way to get there. And as beautiful as the description is, as profound as the promise of God is, we have to be patient. We have to be dedicated. We have to be good to get there. I remember so many times as I was growing up of the different things that would happen this time of year, things that I look back now and say, you know what, those taught me some good values. These things are what helped me to learn how to be a good Christian, how to live in this world expecting the next, the things that I need to be doing so that I can attain that kingdom. And yet, a lot of times, we don't always remember or focus or even live those values today. And that's important that I think we think about it for a moment, that we pause for a moment. Like I said last week, one of the things that I learned about being patient, I clearly learned in this time of year from my mother. We were doing the Advent calendar every year, and, one year I just decided I was just going to see what the rest of them were. I didn't have the patience. I didn't want to. And what I learned from her was so profound because as a family, we were supposed to be doing it. And her look and her words stuck with me. She didn't punish me. I wasn't sent into a timeout, nothing like that. She just looked at me and she said, I thought we were going to do this together. And that kind of togetherness, that kind of family life, I think is so critical to the values that we need to be passing on from generation to generation. The family values that we all embrace need to be where we form the faith, where we form the right living, where we get that idea that there is something wonderful coming. I say it to parents all the time. You can bring your children here to Mass, wonderful. You can bring your children to our faith formation, wonderful. We're only going to support what you do. What you're doing in the house, what you're doing at home, has far more of a profound impact than anything we're going to do here. I always say, parents, you can leave your children with me for a couple hours. I can get them all rallied up for Jesus, and you can undo that in the car ride home. You have that kind of sway and influence. And so parents especially, families especially, come together, grow in faith, support one another, help one another. We can see it so clearly today as we look around. Where has the devil pointed all of his weapons? At the family, trying to tear families apart. When I went to go do my research, one of the things that I found was that when St. John Paul first became the Pope, one of the things that he did is he founded a pontifical commission for the family. And he did that intentionally, and this was in the late 70s, early 80s. He did it because he even saw then how important it was to support families, how important it was to build families up in holiness, how important it was, especially in the world the way it is today, to make sure that family core units have the strength and the commitment that they need, because that's where it happens. And as he even says, as goes the family, so goes the nation and the church. And that's why the devil doesn't want to see good, strong, holy families. Because good, strong, holy families make good, strong, holy people. And the devil doesn't want that. We are formed, we're cultivated through the family. A couple of weeks ago, I heard this really good podcast. I listen to a lot of different podcasts, but the host of the podcast had these two young couples on who were raising their families, and they had written a nice little book. It's not very long. It's a very quick read. It's called Living Beyond Sunday, Making Your Homes Holy. There's a term that has come up a lot since the Second Vatican Council. It's the term the domestic church. We talk about the domestic church. In other words, your homes should be places of holiness and grace. Your homes should be a lot like the church herself. And then a lot of people say, oh, Father, you haven't met my family yet. All right, I get it. 95% of all families are dysfunctional. We know that. The other 5% are in denial, but that's okay. That dysfunction is there. Whatever level it's at, there are things that are broken a little bit, and there are things that need, but as families come together, we can overcome all of that, and we can make a difference by trying to make our homes, our families, holier. Trying to do our part. You know, parents, you wield such influence. Fathers, you have such a profound effect on your children. Mothers, you can cultivate and bring out such beautiful things in your children. And children can pay back their parents in the way they act in society. Going back to the fourth commandment, bringing honor to a father and a mother by the way they live their lives, by the way they act, by the way the decisions they make. But that all has to be brought together. When the family comes together, it's so important. And during Advent, what a precious time we have right now. During Advent, to be cultivating a lot of what the prophet Isaiah was talking about. How we can get beyond the animosity. These two young couples talked about things that they specifically have added to their daily routine with their children, or how they work with their children, or how they talk with their children, or most especially how they deal with each other. Because if father and mother aren't on the same page, they know what's going to happen. If we're not all working toward the same goal, we know what's going to happen. The bishops have been talking an awful lot of late about getting this Eucharistic revival on track. They found out that we really need to appreciate the Blessed Sacrament far more, and I agree with them. But putting out the Blessed Sacrament in holy hours isn't going to solve it. I don't want to burst any bubbles for you. Please come. If we have adoration, please come and worship the Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. But if we don't have a revival in the family, we will not see a commensurate revival in the Eucharist. It comes from the family. And today, I believe that that's what St. John the Baptist is trying to say. Listen, there's something coming. There's something more important. There's something better coming, but be prepared. Be alert. Be ready, because it is coming. You know, it's interesting, the way Advent kind of unfolds. The first 2 weeks have that anxiety, if you will, that anxiousness, that be prepared, get ready, it's going to happen. It's the second 2 weeks where we start to see a little bit more of that joyful expectation, where the tone shifts to that joyful expectation. Both sides of Advent have the same thing, though. We need to be doing our part to be getting ourselves ready for that day of judgment, that day when we either get into that place that Isaiah is talking about or we don't. But that all has to happen around the family table. And so I encourage families, whatever level you're at. Like I read this book, these two young families. I read this book and I thought it was wonderful, but it's not just for young families, because I learned a lot about it, and I'm an old celibate. Things that, we can be doing to help change our own attitudes. As I read it, I thought back to things that, that did happen when we were young. Things like, when it was time to go get the Christmas tree, my father took us. Now, you want to talk about torturing yourself, bring a bunch of kids with you to go pick out the right Christmas tree. But yet he still did it. When it came time to decorate it on Christmas Eve, my mother was a perfectionist, but still allowed us to put our 1 or 2 pieces of tinsel on there, letting us all be part of it and letting us all grow together and bond together. And that has to happen in our homes. We have to start working towards putting aside the animosity and working towards caring about one another, loving one another, being there for one another, putting aside our own egos and our own wills. And think about all the years past. I've been through plenty of Christmases now, and I've been through many, many times where, we all get together. What sticks out more in your memory today? A particular gift you received, or the person who gave it to you? I got lots of things I received over the years. I can't remember most of them, but I can remember the people I was with. That's what it's all about. We're preparing together as family. We're learning to delay our gratifications together as family so that when the moment does come, it's not about the thing, but about us together with Jesus Christ, about us welcoming Jesus into our homes. And so I encourage you, especially during Advent, have those Advent things you can do in your home. Have an Advent prayer with an Advent wreath in your own home, lighting the candle each night and maybe saying a little prayer. The Magnificat Companion is wonderful. There's so many good resources out there. Each family member can take turns doing different things. Just coming together and having that time to build up, to get to know, to fall in love. It is so critically important that we start to think about who we are and how we're going to attain the goals that have been set for us. And so I don't think there's anybody sitting here right now. If I asked any one of you right now, you didn't come here this morning because you don't want to be in heaven someday. You don't want to be in that place that Isaiah was describing. You want to be there, but it doesn't come without effort. It doesn't come without our looking deep within ourselves and figuring out what needs to be changed. And so one of the things that I strongly encourage that we do, and every day do this, at the end of your day, maybe do a little examination of conscience. Think about the people who came into your life that day. Think about your family, your children, your spouses, the people that you encountered, and how you interacted with them. Did you interact with them in a Christian manner? And if at the end of the day you recognize you didn't, and maybe you even sinned when you were interacting with them, you can do something about it. Go to confession. But also too, and here's one of the things that I say, when you recognize how it went wrong, figure out how to do it right. And start disposing yourself for the next time. So that the next time, like my parents taught me, you'll act a certain way. What you did here was not the right way. This is the right way. Keep doing that and keep doing that. Do that with your family members. Work with each other, love each other, help each other. Because during Advent, it is a time of waiting and preparing. And what are we waiting for? It's a question we all have to ask. Are we waiting for just some box under a tree? Or are we waiting for our families to grow in love, to become what St. John Paul II said in Familiaris Consortio, to become that loving union of persons that will be strong in this world? Our world needs strong families, and we need to begin in our homes. And so let's work towards making every one of our homes, no matter where we're at, no matter how old we are, no matter what the dynamic is in our house, let's start making our houses domestic churches. Let's start making our families holy and loving and beautiful. Because before God, that's what's going to matter. All of the things will not, but how we related to Him and to one another will. And so I encourage all of you, maybe spend some time getting a hold of a book like that, or spend some time reading holy things. Spend more time, especially as a family, praying rosaries and working towards building each other up rather than tearing each other down. May God continue to strengthen you and give you His peace, and together we wait.